All right, guys, welcome back. Sco Buff SportsCast. I'm here with Harrison. How have you been the last couple weeks? A lot of stuff's been going on.
Yeah, I've been busy. We haven't been around in a little bit, and it's for good reason. There's been a lot happening. Wrapping up the school year, of course, but definitely um, a lot of sports happenings, and we're here to talk about it.
Yeah, you've been all over the place from the basketball season ending to the football season not starting, but in this little transition period. And I'm here to finally talk about what I have been dying to talk about with the football program. Not a lot has been going on until as of right now. Spring training is underway, and more importantly, the pro day just happened, and we haven't been able to hit on that yet. And so, Harrison, you were at the pro day, the NFL showcase for Colorado, and it was the biggest pro day, if I had to guess, in the school's history. But I'm curious to see, first off, I want to know if that's not true. We've sent NFL guys before, but never quite like this. And so let's go over that a little bit. I just want to know what stood out from you being at the event, whether it be a player that you saw performing. We can go over more in detail later about who was all there. But just right away, I just want to know, what stood out to you? What did you notice just being there?
Well, first of all, it was definitely the biggest in program history by far. I don't think there'll ever be bigger players in terms of just raw star power than Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter that will ever go to the NFL from the program, at least for decades and decades down the line. But I think who stood out for me were kind of the guys that went under the radar. And I noticed B.J. Green. Obviously, Travis Hunter, gloveless and all, was spectacular at receiver. And Shedeur looked the part. He had a lot of accurate throws. He had some throws where it's like, maybe those concerns about his arm strength are a little valid. But then he had another throw to Jimmy Horn where, he showed off his arm strength. It was from about his own 30 to the opposite 15. And Jimmy made a spectacular catch with a backflip after it. But I think overall, who stood out to me was the kind of the under-the-radar guys. Levante Bentley did cornerback drills despite, obviously being a physical linebacker. And B.J. Green clocked in another very solid 40-yard dash. I forget the exact number, but he showed out. He showed his speed off the edge, which is what may get him drafted if that were to be the case. I thought Jimmy Horn had an impressive day, improving his 40 from the combine. And then Will Shepherd, the big vertical, he got a lot of attention from some NFL teams. I saw Sean Payton talking to him in particular. I know you're wearing, no one will see it, but you're wearing the Broncos hat. So, who knows if Shepherd ends up in Denver at some point soon. And, a lot of NFL possibilities. But guys like Shepherd, guys like B.J. Green, and Levante Bentley, those are my big standouts.
And hey, one of your guys too, Alvin Kamara, he showed up.
Well, that was at a practice. That wasn't pro.
That was a practice, yeah. He showed up on campus too. So, how would you feel if Kamara was a Bronco soon? That hurt? Or kind of cool?
that would hurt. Yeah, no, that hurt. Okay. That wasn't the question I expected you to ask, because especially considering the buzz around Shedeur and the Saints lately, which we may get into.
That's true. I know that, and that's very possible. I just have to imagine getting off of Derek Carr would be incredible in any circumstance, but getting Shedeur would be cool, staying in the black and gold. You just reminded me that Alvin Kamara showed up, and I was like, I want Alvin Kamara. But maybe we can trade. We get Kamara, you get Shedeur, and I think both teams get better for it.
Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. It depends on the timeline. I wouldn't mind. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked talking about NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. But I like football. It's I do want to say the one thing that I did. You mentioned Will Shepherd, and he did have a good broad jump, a good vertical jump. The 4.59 40-yard dash was not quite what I was hoping from him. I know we weren't expecting him to really. He's not a blazer. He's definitely going to be a perimeter go up and get it guy. Box out with his size, but if he could have just gotten that just a few, just like 4.5 flat, if he just barely broke 4.4, I think that would have been big for him, because all these Colorado receivers are kind of in that day 3 category, and they're kind of ranging between early day 3, late day 3 in the NFL draft. I think with that slow of a 40, he didn't really do himself favors, because he didn't really show like Matthew Golden from Texas we knew he was a speed threat. He knew he'd be a good player, but he ran a crazy 40, and a lot of NFL teams are looking at that and saying, like, well, maybe there's some upside we have yet to see. Will Shepherd didn't quite have that with his 40-yard dash, and so I just don't think that's quite going to help him. But for the most part, I think you're right. A lot of these guys had pretty good days. One thing that stood out to me, Jimmy Horn ran a 7-second 3-cone, 7.32, and that was a little unfortunate since he's a smaller guy. Just for context, defensive lineman B.J. Green ran his 3-cone at 1/10 of a second slower, so almost the exact same. And so when the defense, great for B.J. Green, but when the defensive linemen are kind of matching you in the agility drills, not the greatest look. And so I don't think that's going to kill any of our receivers too much. The tape kind of speaks for itself. They were all incredibly productive the last season, and I won't be surprised if whatever team takes Shedeur Sanders takes a shot on Horn or Shepherd or one of these guys in day 3 just to have that continuity there.
Yeah, there's, definitely a chemistry factor that could come with taking a guy like Jimmy or a guy like LeJounte, but at least when they get drafted, I don't think something like a 3-cone drill will be taken much into consideration. I think it's the breakaway speed for someone like Jimmy Horn. It's to be put at returner, because they both acknowledged, NFL teams talked to them about, hey, do you want to be a returner? Would you like special teams? Is that how you want to start? And at least for Jimmy, I didn't personally hear what Wester's thoughts on it were, but that's something he'd want to do. And Wester said that's how he would get his foot in the door. So I think both of them, have the breakaway speed that you'd like to see in a returner, especially Jimmy, who's kind of on the smaller side, guy that's been able to slip a lot of defenders. Wester more of the route runner, kind of like a technician type receiver, where you could eventually see him in, to put him in the slot, as like a 5th guy, and in some formations, but. Going back to Shepherd, I think, yeah, like you said, he's not a guy that's going to blow you away with the speed, but I just think his dimensions, his hands, his catch point, they're all things that teams are going to look for because of how difficult the red zone has been in the NFL, just in general, for teams to score in the red zone, and to have a big-bodied receiver that can go up and get it. Get those 50-50 balls. Like he showed it at Colorado. He showed his ability at Pro Day with just the pure high jump, and it got him talks. It got him to speak with, I think, the Titans, the Texans, the Chargers, the Saints, and the Broncos. So all those teams, could use one of those big-bodied receivers, and I think Shepherd fits the mold pretty well.
Yeah, being a red zone threat is going to be a big deal. So it's definitely not his forte to run a huge 40. Just would have liked to see that time just slightly better. I think it would have helped his case, but you're totally right. It's not what he was built to do, and he is good at what he was built to do. I wrote about, me and Leo wrote about all the guys who were going to be at the Pro Day for Colorado and what we were kind of hoping to see from them. And 2 guys that we just haven't really even heard of or seen much over the last couple of years, defensive backs Travis Jay and Herman Smith III, both needed to kind of have a big day to show that they could be special teams players and then hopefully develop into more traditional defensive backs. And according to the SI results, at least, they both did the vertical and the bench, and they had almost the exact same measurements with 33-inch verts, 12 reps on the bench. Herman Smith was 33.5 inches of a vertical jump. So they didn't break away from each other at all. So there's absolutely nothing to take away from that. Was there something that didn't get recorded that you saw, or just maybe it was in the drills from any of the players that maybe stood out? Did anyone look particularly stronger or smoother, more athletic, maybe a body type that just kind of stood out even though they might not be too big or, yeah?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. I know there were some offensive linemen that had some somewhat impressive days. But then also, I think Chidozie Nwankwo, he'll be on the outside looking in, going into this draft. But, unless the team takes a shot, I'm not going to rule out the possibility. But Nwankwo, I think he's a guy that, will eventually get a training camp invite, and he'll make some, veterans starting defensive tackle, he'll make their life a living hell just by how hard this guy looks like, how hard of a worker that guy is. He spent so many years in college, was a wrestler. He's a guy that's going to, make good run fits for whatever team he comes across. So And that's something that every NFL team needs, just the ability to stop the run. So I think Chidozie Nwankwo is something I didn't mention yet that I think might have not stood out necessarily with any of his drills, but I think could make an impact when he eventually finds his way on an NFL roster.
Perfect. Is there any last notes you want to bring up from the pro day? Anything you saw from like the NFL teams that were there? The Browns had a massive contingent of players there to look at, both Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, and they're currently having to make that decision about which one they want to go with. And if Shedeur starts to slip, which is a whole thing, that could be a potential trade-up team. They're deciding between Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at pick 2. If they want to go positionally, they might just go Shedeur at that spot anyway. It's really hard to tell with these quarterbacks. Did anyone else stand out, or just, or if there's anything else you want to hit on the pro day before we move on?
I'll hit on Shedeur just because, I know you mentioned the Browns. They didn't say a word to Shedeur.
Really?
At least from when I was there, or around. I know I saw Kevin Stefanski. I saw some scouts and whatnot, but I didn't see them speak directly to Shedeur. I saw Brian Dable and Joe Schoen of the Giants. Mm-hmm. That went around pretty, got in the cycle of, could the Giants, even with the veteran quarterbacks they signed recently, could they still, with that number 3 pick, go after them, maybe trade back into the first round, something like that. But I did see them talk to him, and then Sean Payton, not that would happen necessarily, unless, right. I mean, with Bo Nix and everything. So I think that was more of just talking to him about whatever it may be the case. Kellen Moore, the Saints coach, as we talked about the buzz, he wasn't at pro day. I know the wide receivers coach for the Saints and the quarterbacks coach for the Saints was there, so maybe they at least had some pair of eyes on Shedeur. But I think going forward, I have zero clue where he's going to land.
I don't either.
I've written like 3 different articles for SI about different teams he could go to, and none of them stand out. And it's like I have zero idea, and I don't think many people do either. So we'll just have to wait and see.
I'm so there with you. Like, I was pretty positive it was going to be the Giants for a while. And then I was leaning, it's probably the Browns make sense, and then they make a whole bunch of moves, and now I'm just I'm so lost. I have no idea if he's going number 2 overall, or if he'll fall to 21 with the Steelers, if it's possible for him to fall even further than that. I don't think it is, but that's just his range of outcomes, and to be realistic, that's probably pretty fair. If this was a better quarterback class, I think he probably would go further down the first round. But at the same time, I think he has the traits to be worthy of a first-round pick. It's just a really weird year between need and want and just the class as a whole. And it's funny that you mentioned the SI thing. I was reading this Pro Day article because I wanted the numbers in front of me, and it was on SI's Colorado Buffs on SI. And as I was halfway down, I was I wonder if Harrison actually wrote this. It was Carlo, but I thought about it. It would have been funny if I was reading back to you what you wrote. Okay, let's move on to the upcoming spring the spring game, the black and gold spring game. That's going to be next weekend, Saturday, April 19th. We will be there. There's a handful of storylines to watch for. I think we could, realistically, if we had an hour plus, go over every single positional group and be this is going to change a lot. What do we think about this? Let's just pick a few of our favorites, but I think it makes sense to start with the quarterbacks, because for the first time we have a quarterback battle. Typically not a good thing to have a quarterback battle. That means you don't have a proven number 1 guy. I'm kind of excited for it this year. It's going to be a little bit of a reset year. We had Shedeur for 2 years. Now we have a really exciting young prospect in Juju Lewis who committed to us. We bring a guy who has a lot of upside in, and I've never said his name out loud. I believe it's Kadon Slater, right?
Salter.
Or Salter, sorry. I knew it was Salter. I don't even know why I said Slater. Salter. He comes from Liberty and was, before this previous season, on the watch list for really surprise Heisman candidates, because he had a great year the year prior. Had a down year last year, transfers here. And no one's really been talking about him. I've never said this guy's name out loud either. But the backup for the last 2 years, Ryan Staub, is also on the roster. I don't know if he'll get a real look or a real shot, considering that Lewis and Salter are people that Coach Sanders just straight up brought in to compete for this job. But, I mean, he has the know-how of the scheme. He's already been here. He's the incumbent, technically. So it'll be interesting to see if he, too, could push him for a starting spot. So we'll see all three on the spring game. Just instant thoughts on the quarterback battle.
Well, I mean, yeah, like you said, it's not usually a good thing to have a battle because there's no standout. But I think in this situation in particular, there can be some excitement about it because Salter, while he had a down year last year, I mean, he was a guy that was all conference. He was actually a 90 overall in college football 25. Not that that matters. But, they really valued him, I think mostly because he has a lot of running ability. And I think, he's racked up over 1,000 yards in his career on the ground. And he's a guy that, is proven to, be able to go out of the pass and then just tuck and run. So for Salter, I think he is the front runner right now to be the starter for next year. But you have to look at it as if it's not at any fault of Juju's. It's just the fact that he's a freshman. This highly touted as he was, it's hard to go into a power conference and have a freshman starting quarterback in any
true
scenario.
Freshman at that.
Right. A true freshman that skipped his senior year of high school. So, he's very young, may not have the reps to be as polished as Salter is. And I think Salter has a good chance to, still have a nice swan song. I know hasn't played in, any particular power conference. He was in the Conference USA. But with Liberty, I mean, he led them to wins. He did what he could. He was originally committed to Tennessee, and found his way to Liberty and really thrived there. So I think when he's back in a power conference scenario with Colorado, I think he definitely has a chance to shine. And I think once that happens, or if maybe that doesn't happen, then Juju will get his name called. So both guys have the potential. And I like both as part of Colorado's future.
Yeah, it's a pretty promising scenario because in the assumption that Salter starts, it means he won. It means he fended off a guy that this coaching staff really, really likes and that he should be playing closer to his 2023 form, which could potentially be great. And yeah, as you said, his running element would add such a wrinkle to this offense that it didn't have last year. We basically made the screen game our running game last year because we just simply couldn't run, which we'll talk about in a second. But if Salter can be dynamic with the ball in his hands, I mean, then he could be the running game too, and that can open up a lot, and so that's really exciting. But if Juju ends up winning the job, that means he beat out a proven, competitive and productive college quarterback who is later in his career. And so that would speak a lot to about how ready Juju is immediately, which could only mean great things for the next 2-3 years. There's plenty of gray area that they could fall in between that isn't necessarily promising, but I'm as equally as excited for you. This is going to be a really fun quarterback battle to cover and to see how it kind of plays out throughout the year. Let's move on to the running back news because lately we got just word that one of the running backs will not be returning and that the competition there has kind of just been shaken up. Do you want to speak on that?
Well, yeah, and you just wrote an article about it. Isaiah Auguste, no longer with the team, likely to the portal. Seeing buzz around him, just getting some money. So he'll be off to somewhere else, but that's a considerable loss. I mean, he was Colorado's leading rusher in 2024. I was expecting him to be kind of maybe not the lead back with Hayden and Welch still around, guys that the coaching staff trusts, but still like a guy that can get upwards of 15 carries, 10 carries a game, and really start to revitalize the run game. Though I've also heard that he hasn't gotten along particularly well with Marshall Faulk, the new running backs coach. So maybe that has played into it a little bit. But for Colorado, I think you definitely have to look out for a different running back once this portal opens up. You still have Welch, who I love particularly. I loved watching Welch run last year. Just a real physical guy. And then you have Hayden, who's proven with Ohio State. Didn't particularly, stand out last year. Had some fun games, like against the UCF. So I think overall they need to go after somebody in the portal. They need to get somebody there. But I think, it's not completely done. You still have Welch, you still have Dallin Hayden, and then you also have Brandon Hood, who has been hurt, but I think he has a chance to kind of break his way into the running back room. And I think you also have Draylon Miller taking some snaps in the backfield, as he said as well.
Yeah, it'll be really telling to see what Deion Sanders does with this room. If he looks to the portal and brings in a talent that he thinks can compete and lead this backfield, or if he just leaves it to the guys that are currently on the roster. I mentioned that in the article. We don't really know right now. None of them were too productive, and Augustav was the leader of that room. And so whether or not that he looks at these guys and says, I want to give you the opportunity to lead this rushing attack, which I think the team's going to look to lean on more this year because they don't have a Shedeur Sanders, it'll be really telling. You mentioned college football earlier. I don't know if you've played, how many dynasties you played with Colorado, but every single time I do, Micah Welch ends up being like a superstar. So
weirdly, that happens for me in Augustave. I had a road to glory as a quarterback for Colorado, and Augustave was the guy. So I don't know.
Okay, that's interesting. So, well, we don't get to find out who was right anymore, but every time I did it, Welch was just like insane. And so I will completely base my thought and opinion on that and that alone until 26 comes out and we run it back again. That said, I had some success with Dallin Hayden too, and Brandon Hood, actually. The game's very favorable to Colorado, which I will not complain about. I'm going to let you choose the next direction. There could be any positional group really has an interesting storyline. So what do you find most interesting?
I don't really know if there's too many more rooms that have storylines. I know the defensive line is going to be great. Obviously
it's a lot of turnover there. We have like almost a new defensive line. So right?
They got some newcomers, but I don't know if they necessarily lost that many big names besides Green. I know they'll still have Arden Walker. They'll still have Keaton Wade, as I was proven today by Brian Howell. But for the defensive line, they'll still have Okunlola. Dayon Hayes is gone, but he didn't play more than I think 3 games. But I think
the production from Cokes and Nwanko, right?
Cokes is gone. Nwanko's gone, but they got Jaheim Otis from Alabama.
Yeah, and that's exciting. That's one we're watching out for big time. That is someone that can come in and really set the tone for what should be a productive pass rush. Anytime you steal someone from Alabama, which is not something that would be even kind of a thought process, 2 years ago, is all of a sudden a reality. And that's someone, I'm really looking forward to seeing on the in the spring game.
Yeah, no, I think they definitely have a chance to pop off. Otis is definitely someone I'm watching for. Among the newcomers, but then there's also Tavian Coleman, who, and then Gabriel Lightfoot. They got Lightfoot from Fresno State, and then Texas State was, I believe, where Coleman's from. So they got some guys, and then there's also Aquin Barnes, who kind of emerged late last season as a guy that they can trust going forward. And Quinn Barnes, that's my mistake. But yeah, I think Okunlola. Tajay McCoy, can't go without mentioning his name because he was a guy that came along towards the end of the season. But yeah, the D-line, I don't think we have to worry about them too much. Even with the new names, some of the turnover, I think they will definitely be a reliable unit to look out for this upcoming season.
And just bringing it back to college football one more time, DJ McKinney always steps in and replaces Travis Hunter fantastically. And so far the reports have been that he looks really good and he's willing to take that role. That would be really promising. We'll see if anyone can step up into that role and play both sides prominently. I doubt it, but Coach Sanders has been willing to give people that opportunity on the offensive and defensive line with skill positions. I don't think it'll be McKinney, but that is someone that's really exciting to look forward to in the secondary. We also got Colton Hood and Preston Hodge, which again, I watched the team, I promise, but I'm just saying from all the college football I played, which is an insane amount, those guys all end up so good. Again, the game's just really nice to Colorado, which is exciting, and now I have to reel in my expectations and realize that these are real people who I'm very excited to watch. And if they don't become first-round superstars, it'll only be a little disappointing. But obviously, there's a lot of faith in this defense, and mostly because of our defensive coordinator, Livingston, who almost got stolen away by your Saints again to be their defensive coordinator. He came up through the ranks with the Bengals over like the last, I think, 6, 7, 8 years. Somehow was found by Deion Sanders. Just an insane find because he was not a coordinator for the... he was not a coordinator. Sorry, my dog is having ready for a walk. But I have a lot of faith that he's going to put these guys into a good spot.
Yeah, no, so am I. I think if we go back to the secondary, the corners are there. They kept most of them besides Travis. I mean, you have a guy like McKinney who's been dominant, or not. I mean, he was a little inconsistent last year, but he's shown that he can be, a guy that doesn't get picked on, a guy that can be solid alongside Travis. And then Preston Hodge was huge to get him back for this year. And then Colton Hood, I think, is a guy that can really break out in year 2. Safety, I don't know. I don't really know about safety. I mean, you lose.
It's where it gets a little weirder, right?
It gets kind of spooky there. I mean, you got Tawfiq Bayard from USF, but I'm trying to think. I mean, you have like Ben Finiseth, and then Savion Riley. I don't even know if he's on the team anymore. He wasn't on the spring
Carter
roster.
Stoutmeyer.
I forgot about Stoutmeyer. Yeah. But I think Stoutmeyer they'll use more at corner this year.
Yeah, he could be our nickel guy.
There's also R.J. Johnson, but I think safety is another position you have to address in the portal. Just because.
And they already brought in Bayard, as you said, and so that clearly means they're like looking at the position. I would say the same thing for linebacker. There's 2 transfers currently in starting spots right now. But we lost a bunch of guys to the draft, which is awesome to say because that's not something that happens regularly. But we lost a bunch of guys who really kind of patrolled the middle of the field, and we are going to have to find guys to bring both speed and just ball production, especially in the run game, because as we saw a couple times last year, if you get bullied in the run game, you can just kind of lose complete sight of what your offense is. And considering our quarterback situation, we don't want to put them in too many situations where they have to just pass all game, drop back, and just 5-step drop and go downfield.
No, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. Now, I wanted to add something on both of the new guys because, you talked about how they went to the NFL. It was just Bentley, and then Nikhai Hill-Green. He got picked up by Alabama. So,
well, I was thinking Silman Craig too.
I guess that was
field, but safety.
But yeah, Selman Craig's a huge loss. I mean, they lost a lot of those veterans in the secondary, so they're going to have to trust some guys. I mean, they got Reginald Hughes from, I believe, was it UTSA? Or no, wait. Oof. That was...
Let me find out for you right here.
That was Jacksonville State.
Jacksonville State and Ole Miss.
And, yeah, okay. So he played for Ole Miss for a little bit. And then I believe the other one was... trying to remember. I was
Martavis French.
French from UTSA. That's somebody I'm really looking out to start. Hughes, I wouldn't lock him in as a starter yet. They still have Jalen Wester, who showed some promise at different points last year, and and then we'll see where Jeremiah Brown fits in. But I think overall linebacker is definitely going to be tricky this year because how impactful Hill-Green and Bentley were both in the pass and the run, but specifically the run, and how just adding Hill-Green in there gave the defense life. I think if you look at what the catalyst of the defense being able to stop the run was, Hill-Green was there a lot of the time. And you obviously add, you lose some of the guys from the interior defensive line also in the run game, but for Hill-Green, that's a big loss. Bentley was a leader in the defense. That's a pretty big loss. So I think depending on how, who they can put next to French at that second linebacker spot, I think they can still be solid at linebacker, but again, it's big shoes to fill.
And then last point, we're already coming up on half an hour. Let's just get to these receiving weapons because we know that this team wants to run through the passing game. The only guy really returning that kind of played last year was Terrell Timmons Jr. Otherwise, you got Draylon Miller and Omarion Miller, which last time I mentioned college football, I didn't realize those were two different people the first time I started playing with Colorado in a dynasty because they were both Miller. And also end up being great players, by the way.
I think...
A lot of Go for it.
No, I was going to say Draylon did play a decent bit, I will say. Like Draylon...
He was the one that got hurt, right?
No, Omarion was the one that got hurt.
Oh, okay.
But Draylon definitely came... he had some life. So I think for someone like Draylon Miller, that's a guy that can take initiative and really take over in that receiver room. But I think Omarion has shown such promise as kind of like that 1A X-receiver guy that... he's the biggest guy to watch when you come up on spring, and how much is he targeted? Who's the kind of that alpha in the receiving room? And then you also have Joseph Williams, who I'm sure you were going to get to. That's a big ad. A guy with a lot of years left, a lot of years ahead of him, but has already shown he can stand out in even just a limited sample size.
And so those are expected to be the top three, both Millers and Williams. But last year we utilized 4 receivers a lot. We didn't really put a tight end on the field too much, especially not to be impactful in the passing game. So who kind of steps up into that 4th role is going to be kind of interesting. I assume it's Timmons Jr. based off just like the seniority of things, but they brought in a bunch of freshmen. This is a position they clearly attacked in the recruiting trail. And whether or not one of those guys who I have here is Gibson, Wilson, and Farrakhan Jr., who of those guys step up? And we really don't know because they're freshmen. There's a little bit we can infer from their high school days, but I mean, the spring game is going to be the chance for them to step up and see who can make plays in a game setting. So do you have any kind of insight on any of those guys? Does any of them have like the inside step?
I think Gibson, in particular,
okay.
I think he has it. He has the it factor,
okay.
a little bit. I think whether he, I know he's undersized, and he was only a 3-star because of it, but he has the speed that. I'll use a slightly different analogy than I said when I wrote about it. He has speed that would make Sonic the Hedgehog cry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
No.
What did you say in the article then?
Oh, it would make Sonic the Hedgehog jealous. But I think.
Oh. Okay.
With some of the highlights I've seen out of spring, he's already showing that he can, be a guy they put on reverses, a guy they can, if they can just get the ball to him in space, he can do what someone like a Wester did, a Jimmy Horn did, where he can reverse the field and just, smoke guys, leave them in the dust. Though, again, I think he'll have to put some muscle on before he becomes more well-rounded. But those, the guys that are well-rounded were the other guys you mentioned, like Farrakhan Jr. And a Wilson, Adrian Wilson. So,
yeah.
I like all 3 of those guys. I think they each have plenty of potential. But Gibson, I think, is going to be a guy that finds his way into the rotation by the time the season's over. And for Timmons, I don't know what to make of him because he's kind of like he just looks like a guy that's only there to block. I hate to be disrespectful.
That's what they do.
But I think if they're going to go more heavy into the run, then I wouldn't be surprised to see Timmons on the field because I think he was there a lot of the time last year to do exactly that. He was a guy there to block. And I think some of these freshmen, they're going to get told like, okay, if you want to get on the field, you're going to have to learn how to block. You're going to have to learn how to help out with the run game first. And for someone like Gibson, who's extremely undersized, that's going to be tough. But I still think that, there's plenty of guys that could step into that 4th role. And I think that the freshmen definitely have as much of a shot as any of them.
Yeah, and really any of those 3 freshmen that end up producing this year, that's found money because we're not really relying on them to with the guys ahead of them. We have some proven talents that are looking to make that step up too. And so if one of those guys end up earning their way onto the field throughout the season, that's just really promising for the future of this team. Again, it seems like we're kind of playing, quote unquote, playing for 2026 with such a young roster. But if we can be productive in this year, I mean, that's just really promising for how good they can be over the next 2-3 years. And even more so, they're in the same class as Juju. So those are guys that can play like all 2, 3, 4 years together if they end up staying around for a bit. And that synchronicity that they can form over this time could be big for them and really result in a cohesive offense over the year. As anything else we want to get to? We ran a little over. That's okay.
No, I'm not worried about that.
We did end up covering most. Yeah, I'm not either. We did end up covering most of the positions. So if there's anyone we didn't really get to say, we didn't mention Cam McKell. Or Mickle. How do you say that one?
Oh, Mickle. I think it's Mickle. But, he was a guy that basically redshirted last year, didn't play at all.
Yeah.
But was on the team. A guy that...
But
he was... Football. Yeah, no, but he was a guy that came in as like a two-way guy. He had potential at cornerback, though. I think they've stuck with him at wide receiver, at least for now. So, I think he has a shot. I mean, I definitely don't want to count him out, and... there's like a Caleb Mathis that's still there. Like, there's guys that have stuck around and will definitely be competing, for a spot. But I think, receiver's going to be an interesting bunch. Really interesting. I mean, you lose those 4 guys that were that instrumental in the success of your offense, and you lose Shedeur. I think the offense is going to look a lot different. I think it's going to be a lot more Pat Shurmur influenced, for better or for worse. So we'll have to see. But I like some of the wide receivers, definitely.
I know, it's going to be really interesting to watch. I really did want to get into the whole scheme of it all, but I think we should save something for this summer and before the next season starts. But that is going to probably be it for today. We will update you guys as soon as the spring game has concluded. We will both be there, and I imagine we're both really excited to kind of see what the future of this team looks like, because that's what we're going to be speculating on for the rest of the summer until we get a real game in. So until next time, thank you guys for listening. We appreciate your guys' love and support. Check out ScoBuffSports.com if you guys want to see the latest in all things Colorado Buffalo sports as we continue to update the football team. But we got other sports going on too, and some of them are pretty good. So go ahead and check that out. We appreciate that, and we will see you guys next time.